I'm not the kind of guy people remember from office parties. If you've ever worked with someone like me, you know the type. Shows up on time, does the work, answers emails, leaves the loud talking to the people who like hearing their own voice. That's me. Or, that was me before one night turned into the worst humiliation of my career. The funny part, I didn't raise my voice. I didn't throw a drink. I didn't even clap back. I just stood there, holding a paper plate and a plastic cup, while a coworker tore me apart in front of our CEO like it was stand-up comedy. And 2 weeks later, she was the one being walked out by HR with her badge in a plastic bag. But I'm getting ahead of myself. My name's Evan. I work in a mid-sized marketing agency that pretends it's a tech startup because we have bean bags and cold brew on tap. Officially, I'm a senior account strategist. Unofficially, I'm the guy people forward urgent client emails to at 4:55 p.m. and assume I'll make the problem go away. The person this story is really about is Melissa. Melissa is the kind of coworker managers love at first and learn to fear later. Loud, confident, always on. She's the one who volunteers to present, who talks over quieter people in meetings and then repeats their ideas louder, who's already halfway through her third mimosa at a team brunch while you're still deciding if you should order coffee. She also happens to sit diagonally across from me, which means for 3 years I've had a front row seat to the Melissa show. To be fair, she's not all bad. She hits her numbers, can charm a difficult client, and knows how to make small talk with anyone. The problem is, the more attention she got, the more she seemed to need. It stopped being, I like doing presentations, and became, if I'm not the center of the room, something's wrong. And somehow I became her favorite prop. It started small. Harmless stuff, right? If I stumbled over a word on a call, she'd grin and say, "Good thing Evan's better with spreadsheets than speeches." If I stayed late a few nights in a row, she'd walk by and say, "Careful, you're setting the bar too high for the rest of us, overachiever." Everyone would laugh. I'd smile because that's what you do. You tell yourself, it's just her sense of humor. Don't be dramatic. Our company had this tradition. Once a year, they rent out a downtown rooftop bar for a summer social. It's not mandatory, but you feel the unspoken pressure. Great networking opportunity, good chance to make an impression, that kind of thing. This year was supposed to be a big deal because Andrew, our CEO, the kind of guy you usually only see in pre-recorded town hall videos, was flying in to join. That detail matters. The week before the party, Melissa popped her head over the divider between our desks. "Evan, you going to the rooftop thing?" she asked, twirling a pen like a baton. "I guess," I said. "Seems like everyone is." "You better," she smirked. "I need my emotional support introvert. Someone has to nod politely while I overshare." I half smiled. I'm not sure I qualify as emotional support. She rolled her eyes. "Relax, I'm kidding, mostly. Just don't hide by the food table the whole night, okay? The CEO's gonna be there. Big chance to, I don't know, show you exist." I brushed it off, but it stuck. "Show you exist." She said it like a joke, but it landed exactly where my insecurities live. The day of the party, I almost didn't go. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at my phone, trying to convince myself it was fine to skip it. No one would notice. Then I thought of our manager, Jack, and the way he always says, "Visibility matters, Evan," whenever promotion season rolls around. So I ironed a shirt, put on the one pair of shoes that doesn't squeak, and took the train into the city. The rooftop was already buzzing when I got there. String lights, a DJ in the corner, people laughing too loud over music that was just a little too high. Our logo was projected on a brick wall like a low-budget Batman signal. A long table lined with sliders, tiny tacos, and some salad no one was touching sat against the railing. I did what I always do, checked in with the bartender, grabbed a soda, and scoped out the edges of the crowd. There's an art to being present without being in the way. You hover near people you know well enough to nod to, but not so close you get dragged into conversations you have nothing to add to. Melissa made her entrance about 20 minutes after me, because of course she did. She wore this bright red dress that turned every head within 10 feet. I watched her work the room. Hug here, compliment there, hand on someone's arm, laughter that was just a bit louder than necessary. When she spotted me, she grinned and beelined over. "There he is," she announced, loud enough for 3 adjacent conversations to pause. "My favorite spreadsheet wizard." "Hey," I said, trying to sound normal. She elbowed me lightly. "Drink number, what, 0.5? Come on, live a little. You're at the top of a building, not in a basement." "I'm good," I replied. "Early day tomorrow." She made a face, then leaned in conspiratorially. "Andrew's here, by the way. Blue blazer, near the bar. Did you say hi yet?" "No," I said. I hadn't even looked. "You should," she pressed. "You can't hide behind me forever." "Didn't realize I was hiding behind you." She laughed, a little too sharp. "Relax, Evan, I'm messing with you." But she walked away before I could answer. As the night went on, people got looser. Volume turned up. Someone started a game of who's got the worst client story. And of course, Melissa took the lead. I stayed on the fringe, talking with one of the junior designers about her dog. At some point, Jack waved me over. "Evan, come join us for a sec." I stepped into a loose circle of people. Jack, 2 product guys, Melissa, and standing just slightly outside, listening with that detached half-smile you only see on execs, was Andrew. "Evan," Melissa sang, already half a drink past appropriate. "Perfect. We were just talking about client disasters. You got to tell the one from the Dalton pitch." My stomach dropped a little. "I don't think that's... Oh my God, come on." She cut me off, turning to Andrew. "You'll love this. So we had this big presentation last quarter, right? Huge potential retainer. And Evan..." "Melissa," I tried again, quieter. "It's not really a funny story." She ignored me. "Evan gets up there with his slides, and he's so nervous. His hand is literally shaking with the clicker. Like full-on earthquake." She mimed it, arm trembling wildly, people chuckling. I felt heat crawl up my neck. Jack muttered, "Okay, Mel." But he didn't really stop her. "And then," she continued, eyes shining, "he goes to say multi-channel strategy, and it comes out like mulchi-channel." She exaggerated the stumble, mouth twisting. The clients just stared at him. It was, honestly, painful. A couple of people laughed. One of the product guys winced and looked at his shoes. I could feel Andrew's eyes on me, calm, evaluating. Melissa wasn't done. "I mean, don't get me wrong," she said, patting my arm like I was a child. "He's brilliant behind the scenes. Our little numbers guy. But public speaking?" She whistled. "We try not to put him in front of humans unless we absolutely have to." Someone added, "That bad, huh?" Half joking, trying to diffuse it. She took that as fuel. "It's like watching a deer try to give a TED Talk," she said. "Your heart wants to root for him, but you're mostly hoping he doesn't bolt off the stage." This time, the laughter was loud. Not everyone, but enough. The DJ's music dipped between songs, so her words carried farther than they should have. I saw a couple of heads turn. My face felt numb. I stared at my drink, then at her, then at the ground. I could have made a joke back, could have said something about her last brilliant campaign that nearly lost us a client, could have thrown something sharp about her always needing an audience. Instead, I heard my own voice come out low and steady. "Are you done?" She blinked, surprised. "I'm just teasing, Evan. Calm down." "You told a story about me messing up in front of a client to our CEO," I said, still not raising my voice. "That's not teasing. That's you throwing me under the bus for a laugh." The circle went quiet. Even the air felt different. Melissa snorted, but it sounded forced. "Oh, come on. Andrew knows we win more than we lose. He can handle one little disaster story, right?" She turned to him, looking for backup. Andrew didn't smile. He met my eyes instead. "How did that pitch end?" he asked. "For Dalton," I said. "We closed it. I recovered. Jack stepped in. We adapted the deck. They signed a 3-month trial that turned into a full contract." Andrew nodded slowly. "Good." He took a sip of his drink, then looked at Melissa. I've never been interested in stories that stop at someone's worst moment. The silence after that felt heavier than any joke. Melissa laughed awkwardly. Sure, totally, I was just... Anyway, Andrew said, cutting her off gently, good to finally put a face to your name, Evan. I've seen your numbers. He gave me a small nod and moved on to talk to someone from finance. The group broke apart like a bubble popping. Jack mumbled something about getting another drink. The product guys drifted away. It was just me and Melissa for a second, standing in the blasted remains of her little comedy set. She rolled her eyes. Wow, way to make it weird. You did that, I said quietly. She tossed her hair like that was ridiculous. You're so sensitive. If you can't take a joke, maybe you're in the wrong industry. Then she smiled at someone over my shoulder and walked away, leaving me standing there with my ears still ringing and my heart thudding in my throat. I didn't storm out. I didn't cry in the bathroom. I stayed another hour talking to people about safe topics, nodding, smiling. From the outside, I probably looked totally normal. Inside, though, something had shifted. It wasn't dramatic. No big cinematic moment. Just a small, precise feeling, like a line being drawn with a pen. I went home that night knowing one thing for sure. That had been the last time I'd let her turn me into a punchline for free. The morning after the party felt like waking up with a bruise I couldn't see. Not the kind that throbs. The kind that sits under the skin, dull and constant, reminding you exactly where you were hit. I kept replaying Melissa's voice in my head, the way she'd laughed, the way the group had looked at me, the way Andrew had paused before responding. Every time I thought I'd shaken it off, one stray thought brought it all back like a slap. But that was just the beginning. When I walked into the office Monday morning, the air felt different. People said hi, but softer. A few coworkers who usually chatted with me by the coffee machine gave me the kind of look you give someone who survived a car accident. Too sympathetic, too careful, like they weren't sure what version of me they were talking to. And Melissa? She strolled in 10 minutes after I did, sunglasses still on, iced coffee in hand, like she was the one who'd had a rough night. She dropped her bag on her chair, sighed loudly, and said to no one in particular, Ugh, I'm still recovering from that rooftop. Then she shot me a glance, not guilty, not embarrassed, not even awkward. Just a quick flick of her eyes, a shrug, and she moved on, as if the entire thing had been forgotten, forgiven, irrelevant. For her, maybe it was. For me, it was still sitting on my lungs. Around 10 a.m., Jack walked by my desk. He did this thing where he pretended to check something on my monitor, while actually trying to gauge my mood. You good? He muttered. I'm fine, I said, eyes on my screen. He nodded, relieved, too relieved, which told me he didn't want to talk about it any more than I did. Melissa gets carried away sometimes. Don't take it personally. I didn't even look at him. If it wasn't personal, she wouldn't have used my name. He had no answer for that. Managers rarely do when the truth is simple. The rest of the week moved slowly. I kept my head down, focused on client reports, sent quiet emails, attended meetings where Melissa acted like nothing had happened. If anything, she seemed lighter than usual, like humiliating someone had burned off her stress. But on Wednesday, something happened that cracked the calm. I was finalizing a quarterly analysis slide deck when my chat notification pinged. It was from Ava, one of the designers who'd been standing in that circle at the party. Hey, just wanted to say, you didn't deserve that. Any of it. Before I could type a response, another message popped up. I think people forget jokes are only jokes when both people are laughing. I stared at the screen for a few seconds, letting the words settle. It felt like someone putting a hand on my shoulder. Not heavy, just steadying. Thanks, I wrote back. That means more than you think. She sent a small reply. Everyone saw, even the ones pretending they didn't. I leaned back in my chair, letting that sink in. Because that's the thing. Humiliation always feels like a private disaster, even when it happens in public. You assume everyone's moved on. You assume you're the only one still replaying it, but sometimes the room is quieter than you think. That afternoon, Melissa flounced over to my desk with the same loud confidence she wore like perfume. "Evan, you didn't send me the Q3 estimates yet." "I didn't receive the assets from you," I said. "I'm waiting." She rolled her eyes. "Okay, Dad, sorry I didn't file my homework on time." A few people glanced over. She loved that. But this time, something inside me didn't flinch. "Just send them," I said, voice flat. "I'll finish the deck." She paused, only for a second, because the old me would have chuckled awkwardly or softened or played along to keep the peace. But I didn't. She didn't know it yet, but that decision would cost her everything. The next morning at 9 sharp, my email pinged with a message titled, "Meeting Request. Andrew Foster, our CEO." I stared at it for a full 10 seconds before opening it. "Hi, Evan. Would you have 15 minutes today? No rush. Anytime after 2 p.m. works. Andrew." No subject notes, no context. No CC to Jack or HR. Just a direct message from the CEO. My stomach tightened. Plenty of things this could be about, but we both knew which one made the most sense. All day, my brain played the same loop. Did I look unprofessional? Did I make him uncomfortable? Was he checking if I could handle pressure? Did Melissa say something afterward? At 2:04, his assistant waved me into a small conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows and absolutely nowhere to hide. Andrew walked in with a coffee and sat across from me like we'd spoken a dozen times before. "Evan," he nodded. "Thanks for making the time." "Of course." He didn't open a laptop, didn't check his phone. He just looked at me calmly, like he was measuring the weight of the room. "I wanted to follow up on something from the summer party," he said. My chest tightened. He continued, voice steady, almost thoughtful. "You handled yourself with a lot of restraint. More than most people would have." I blinked. "Thank you, I guess." He gave a small smile. "I pay attention at these events. They tell me things the office doesn't." I didn't know what to say to that. Then he leaned back slightly. "Has this kind of dynamic with Melissa happened before?" For a second, the room felt too quiet. I didn't want to complain. I didn't want to look petty. I didn't want to turn a coworker problem into a corporate problem. But I also didn't want to lie. "Yes," I said finally. Not always that public, but yes. He nodded slowly, like he wasn't surprised. "That's consistent with other feedback we've received." My eyes lifted. "Other feedback?" He didn't elaborate, because CEOs don't need to. They plant the seed and let it grow. "I won't keep you long," he said, standing. "I just needed clarity. You've given me that." I stood too, unsure what had just happened. As he reached for the door, he added, "Sometimes people tell you who they are when they think the room is laughing with them." He left before I could respond, and in the quiet, after he walked out, for the first time since the rooftop night, something inside me loosened. Just a little, a small shift, a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. I didn't know it yet, but that conversation marked the moment the ground started moving under Melissa's feet, because the truth had finally reached someone who could do something about it. And the silence between that meeting and what came next was the kind that means something's gone wrong. I didn't notice the shift at first. No alarms, no whispered warnings, just a subtle change in the way conversations stopped when Melissa walked into a room. Not because people admired her, but because they didn't want to be pulled into whatever storm was forming around her. By Monday, the tension was thick enough to taste. I was updating a client budget sheet when a message flashed on my screen. "HR would like to schedule a meeting with you. Duration, 20 minutes. Purpose, follow-up." My chest tightened. I hadn't filed a complaint. I hadn't even hinted at wanting one. So if HR wanted to talk, it meant someone else had said something. And then it hit me. Andrew. The meeting was set for Wednesday morning. 2 days of waiting. 2 days of Melissa acting perfectly normal. Or rather, trying to. If you didn't know her, you'd miss it. But once you'd been her target long enough, you recognized the signs. The slight edge in her voice, the restless tapping of her pen, the way her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. Something was wrong, and she could feel it. Tuesday afternoon, she stopped by my desk, not in her usual dramatic way. This time, she hesitated first. "Hey," she said, voice lighter than usual. "Got a second?" I kept typing. "I'm in the middle of something. What's up?" She shifted her weight. "Look, about the party." I stopped typing. She took that as permission to continue. "I didn't mean to embarrass you," she said. "You know I joke around. Everyone does. I just went too far. We're good, right?" The old me would have softened, laughed it off, given her the out she wanted. But I remembered the look on her face when she mimicked me in front of everyone. The pride, the thrill of having the crowd in her palm. So I kept my voice neutral, not angry, just honest. "I don't think you understand what happened," I said. She blinked. "It was a joke." "No," I said, "it wasn't." For the first time, her confidence faltered, just barely, but enough to see the crack. "You're seriously upset about this?" she asked. "I'm not upset," I replied. "I'm just not pretending it was something it wasn't." Her lips pressed into a thin line. "Well, okay, if you want to be dramatic." I raised an eyebrow. "I didn't tell HR anything." Her eyes widened. A flinch she tried to cover instantly. Too late. "What?" she asked, voice sharp. "I said I didn't tell HR anything." She took half a step back. "Why would HR—" Her voice cracked before she could finish the sentence. And just like that, I realized something. She already knew. And that was the moment chaos began. The HR meeting was in one of those small glass rooms built for privacy, except everyone outside could still see the shape of your body language. Two people sat across from me, Lara, whom everyone trusted, and Marcus, who looked like he had been practicing empathy in a mirror. "Evan," Lara began, "thank you for meeting with us. We're reviewing some concerns brought to our attention." "I didn't file anything," I said again. "We know," she replied calmly. "This isn't tied to a single complaint. We've received multiple reports over the past few months regarding inappropriate comments and patterns of behavior involving Melissa." My breath stilled. Multiple. Months. So it wasn't just the rooftop. It wasn't even just me. "Your insight is important," she said. "We'd like to understand your experience with her, especially at team functions or client-related events." I hesitated. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want to destroy her career. But I also wasn't going to protect her anymore. So I told them the truth. Not dramatically, not vengefully, just plainly. Every time she'd used me as a punchline. Every meeting she'd talked over me. Every time she'd joked about my work like it was a toy instead of the things keeping our clients from firing us. And finally, the rooftop incident. Lara took notes. Marcus listened like he was hearing a slow-motion car crash. When I finished, Lara set her pen down. "Evan," she said softly, "I want to be clear. None of what you described is acceptable workplace behavior. This aligns with other accounts we've received." Other accounts. Plural. "Is this about Andrew?" I asked before I could stop myself. They exchanged a look, the kind that says we can't answer that, but also yes. "We're conducting a full review," Lara said. "Your cooperation is appreciated." The meeting ended without drama, which made it even heavier. As I walked back to my desk, people avoided eye contact in that I know something way, and Melissa, she wasn't at her desk. 10 minutes later, I saw her, walking fast, jaw clenched, eyes sharp, straight toward HR. She didn't look at me when she passed, but her shoulders were tight, like she was holding herself together by thread. Something was unraveling. Over the next few days, everything intensified. Melissa stopped holding court in the office kitchen. She stopped cracking jokes. She stopped trying to be the loudest voice in the room. Instead, she watched people. Really watched them. Paranoid, searching, waiting to see who had spoken up. I felt her eyes on me more than once, but not with anger, with fear. Thursday morning, she cornered Ava near the elevators. I only heard the tail end. "Just tell me if you said something." Ava's voice was steady. "Melissa, don't pull me into this." Then the elevator doors closed between them. Melissa emerged later, looking frantic. Mascara smudged, hair messy, not put together, shaken. She went from being the office's loudest voice to its loudest silence. And then came Friday. I was finishing a deck when a notification popped up. Immediate all hands in the conference room. Oh, everyone shuffled in. Melissa wasn't there. Jack cleared his throat, looking like someone had handed him a script he didn't want to read. "I'll keep this brief," he said. HR conducted an internal review regarding several complaints. As of today, Melissa is no longer with the company. No details. No explanation. Just the clean corporate guillotine. The room was dead quiet. Not shocked. Not celebrating. Just absorbing the weight of what it meant. And despite everything she'd done, to me, to others, part of me felt something unexpected. Not guilt, not pity. Just the realization that for someone who lived off attention, silence was the harshest ending imaginable. They thought I was gone. I wasn't. I didn't rise. I didn't retaliate. I didn't tear her down. I simply stopped holding up the other side of the bridge she was walking across. And without my half, she fell. As the meeting ended and people drifted out quietly, Jack approached me. "You okay?" he asked. For the first time in weeks, I knew my answer without hesitation. "I think I am," I said, but I also knew something else. This wasn't over. Not for Melissa. Not yet. The office felt different after Melissa was gone. Not lighter, not yet, just quieter in a way that let your thoughts actually settle. For the first few days, people moved like they were afraid of stepping on a bruise. Softer voices, shorter conversations, glances exchanged like tiny secrets no one knew how to hold. But eventually, life resumes. It always does. And in that slow return to normal, something unexpected happened. I started breathing easier. Not because she was fired. Not because justice had been served. But because for the first time in a long time, I wasn't waiting for the next joke, the next dig, the next moment I'd have to swallow and carry alone. Still, Melissa's story didn't end with that all-hands announcement. A week after her termination, HR emailed the whole department a gentle reminder about professional conduct, respectful communication, and reporting concerns proactively. They didn't name her. They didn't have to. Everyone understood what the memo meant. The culture had let something rot for a while, and they were finally disinfecting it. The same afternoon, Ava stopped by my desk. "You holding up okay?" she asked, hands tucked in the pockets of her hoodie. "I am," I said honestly. "It's been a lot." She gave me a small smile. "People underestimate quiet folks. They think silence equals weakness." I shook my head. "I wasn't trying to win anything." "I know," she said, "and that's why you did." That hit harder than I expected. 2 days later, HR called me in one last time. This meeting was short, 5 minutes maybe. Lara thanked me, said the investigation was concluded, and assured me that sharing my experience had helped bring clarity to a bigger pattern. Then she said something that stuck with me. Sometimes a single moment just reveals what was already there. I left the room feeling something I hadn't felt in a while. Closure, not dramatic, not loud, not triumphant. Just a quiet end to a chapter that had taken up too much space in my life. But closure for me wasn't closure for Melissa. Word travels, even when no one is talking. We didn't hear from her directly. She didn't email anyone, didn't call, didn't show up uninvited the way some people do after they're terminated, but little fragments drifted through the office like dust in sunlight. She'd tried to contest her termination. She'd accused HR of bias, of targeting her, of listening to people who can't take a joke. She'd reached out to a few coworkers privately, not to apologize, but to demand which of them betrayed her. No one responded. Maybe she expected me to fold, to defend her, to offer her some kind of last-minute redemption arc. But I didn't owe her that, and she never reached out to me. Not once. 3 weeks after she left, I walked into the office kitchen to refill my water bottle and found Andrew, our CEO, standing by the counter, stirring sugar into his coffee like he had all the time in the world. "Morning," he said with a nod. "Morning," I replied. He studied me for a moment, not unkindly. "How's the team doing?" "Adjusting," I said. "It's quieter." "Quieter's underrated," he said, smiling slightly. Then, "How are you doing?" I hesitated, then answered honestly. "Better," he nodded. "Good. I meant what I said that night. People show who they are when they think no one's watching." I held his gaze. "I wasn't trying to get her fired." "Oh, I know," he said. "But she got herself fired. You just stopped being the cushion that kept her fall soft." He set his coffee down, ready to leave, but paused at the door and added, "Evan, for what it's worth, I've kept an eye on your work for a while. You don't need a loud voice to be a strong presence. Keep going." He walked out before I could respond, and that was the last conversation we ever had about the rooftop night. Life didn't change overnight. No promotion, no standing ovation, no cathartic movie ending. Instead, something better happened. I finally stopped shrinking myself to fit around someone else's ego. Meetings felt easier. Clients respected my input. My team actually listened when I spoke, not because I got louder, but because I wasn't apologizing for existing anymore. One afternoon, Ava leaned over our shared divider and said, "You seem taller lately." I laughed. "I'm the same height." "No," she said, "different kind of tall." And she was right. I hadn't grown. I'd stopped folding. As for Melissa, I heard things eventually. Not gossip, just the quiet facts that slipped through the cracks. She'd lost the job offers she was pursuing. The recruiters she blamed refused to work with her again. Her reputation, the one she'd protected with sharp jokes and loud confidence, had finally cracked wide open. She didn't land in flames. She didn't collapse dramatically. She just faded. Not because of me, but because without an audience to applaud the act, there was no act left. On a Thursday evening, nearly a month after everything ended, I stayed late finishing a proposal. The office was empty except for the hum of the AC and the city lights flickering through the window. I leaned back, stretched, and realized something simple but profound. Peace isn't something you win. It's something you stop giving away. And I had stopped giving mine to the wrong people. I packed up, slung my bag over my shoulder, and walked toward the elevator. As the doors closed, I saw my reflection. Tired, yes, but grounded, steady, whole. I didn't get revenge. I didn't seek karma. All I did was step out of the shadow someone else kept dragging me into. And when I stopped holding up the part of her world she stood on, that world finally collapsed. Not on me, not because of me, just away from me, where it belonged. And for the first time in a long time, the quiet felt like mine again.